Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. We are continuing our discussion of Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver, book 2 of the Ruinous Love Trilogy.
You make it sound so sexy. You're like, Leather and Lark.
It is sexy.
By Brynne Weaver.
I mean,
yet,
honestly,
it's not.
if you didn't know what it was about, Leather and Lark kind of sounds like
We're going to be talking
BDSM
about
going on.
Lachlan's boners in this section, chapters 13 through 15.
Maybe you are.
I am. It's in my notes. I'm pretty sure it's one of my favorite moments. But before we get there, Deb, will you please share our nerdiest cocktail?
Tonight's drink is appropriately named after our Tuesday episode, Constantine. It is themed after getting to know your significant other because, why not get married to someone you don't know? It pairs well with late night chats, trophy making, and bedtime stories.
Aww.
It may cause you to watch your partner's favorite movie 12 times. It's really good. It's got cherry juice and vodka and cranberry juice, and it's really, really tasty. I did want to ask you guys, has there ever been a movie you've watched 12 times? I know you've read a book 12 times, but what about a movie?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've seen one 12 times.
I've definitely seen every episode of Friends that many times. And then growing up, I used to watch Encino Man over and over again.
I watched The Princess Bride a bunch as a kid, and I've probably watched Moulin Rouge 12 times for sure.
I bet I've seen Clueless 12 times.
Oh, yeah.
I would say Clueless would be one that I've watched many, many times, and The Wedding Singer is one that I've watched
I've probably watched that 12
times. You know what I've
too.
definitely watched 12 times is freaking Frozen 2.
We're talking Sans kids. So I will say, at least my daughter watched the first one, and she was kind of aging out of it when Frozen 2 came out, because the first one's definitely superior. Although I have to say,
think so? I like the music in the second one
I do
better.
love it. Samantha?
Yeah.
Like, it just makes me laugh every time.
Well, I'm trying to think. I feel like there's actually lots of movies that
A
I've
movie
seen
that you
many
wanted
times.
to watch 12 times.
There's
How's
probably,
that?
I used to watch The Princess Bride or the very first episode for Star Wars, like when I was homesick as a kid from school. So I've probably seen those.
You know what I always
12
watched when
times.
I was homesick was Doug on Nickelodeon. And as I got older, yeah, I had Patty mayonnaise. You see how I did that? Patty mayonnaise. But then as I got older, I couldn't watch it because it reminded me of being sick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's like drinking Sprite. Me and my husband were discussing the other day, like, it's so funny in the 80s and 90s. They're like, you're sick, drink this sugar substance.
Yeah.
And now we're like, don't give your sick kids soda, but we still do.
Yeah,
it settles their stomach.
I totally still do.
Yeah.
Well, now it's time for the nerdy.
Well,
see ya later. Now it's time for the nerdy and dirty recap. Mindy, the wheel has spoken.
It's me again. You get to listen to me stumble through.
The wheel said, Mindy.
Mindy.
So
right.
Mindy has 30 seconds to tell us what happened in this section
I
of
will
the book.
probably only get halfway through.
Well, we'll see.
Let's try.
And away we go.
Lark visits Aunt Ethel, who is totally up to something, even though she seems to be getting sicker. Lachlan and Lark go to visit crazy Leander, negotiate the first contract, and Leander passes out from eating drugged muffins. Then they look through Leviathan's files to check on potential suspects. Lachlan finally apologizes to Lark. He takes her to a sleep retreat. Then he busts her out of sleep camp to go torture the headmaster of an old school. Lachlan exposes Campbell's dirty secrets, but leaves the killing to Lark. And he brought her glitter. Lachlan takes a trophy and makes a craft out of it. Lark asks him to read her something to help her fall asleep, and he reads her Constantine. He stays on the phone on mute in case she wakes up.
That was really good.
That was really good.
Good job.
You got way more than halfway through.
Yeah,
you
that
did
was-
I'm pretty
great.
proud of myself.
That was excellent.
Yeah, I
Golf
felt like you
claps.
covered everything too.
Golf claps all around, Mindy. Good job.
We're doing it. You just can't see it, friends.
Except for our YouTube friends who are like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. I see a drink in your hand, Deborah. You've not put it down yet.
Well, Mindy, it's still you.
Yes.
Will you please share our nerdiest vocabulary?
Well, technically, I don't really have an official vocabulary, but I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate the word dickmatized. And that's all I have. 'cause
I did
just
enjoy
think
that.
That was an amazing. Well, and what's funny too is I collect stickers from, book retreats and stuff. Book retreats. What the hell? Book festivals.
We've already had cocktails I called Patty Mayonnaise Panny.
Panny.
Anyway, and I actually have a couple of stickers that say dickmatized on them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't know. An author somewhere along the line used that word. I don't think it was Brynne Weaver, but yeah.
Well, There
It
we
is.
go.
That's a great word.
That's
Yeah.
funny because that is part of my favorite moment.
Oh,
of
that's
this
funny.
part.
The
Oh, that's
dickmatized?
hilarious.
Well, really, my favorite moment was Lachlan's apology on the way to the sleep retreat. He finally does it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he also has like big dick energy for taking care of her. So
my
it's
gosh,
this is
yes.
also my favorite spicy scene is him taking her to the sleep retreat. And he tells her, I'm not going to ask you to forgive me because I need to earn it, which like made me swoon.
Yeah.
But then she says 3 things throughout these chapters that I love. You realize that I'm not going to be dickmatized into an accelerated apology program, right? And then she says, you can't sleepmatize me into forgiving you. And then finally she says, you will not Keanu-matize me into forgiveness. So I
Yeah.
love that she like kept that
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, how many of us have been dickmatized? We're like, all right, I forgive
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But I love that he like took care of her in
Yeah.
that moment and was like, you know, you need
I
to
love
sleep
that.
and you're not taking care of yourself.
Well, and the like, if this doesn't work, we'll look for something else. Like he didn't put any pressure on. Look at all this effort I went through.
Right.
So gosh, I hope
He
this
didn't
works.
make it about him. Or
Yeah,
anything,
I loved it. That was one of my favorite things too.
Aw, Lachlan.
Yeah, he's my favorite. Mindy, what was your favorite?
I
moment?
loved that whole banter between Lark and Lachlan about glitter. And like she accuses him of using her crafting stuff. And he counters with like, I know I like gold stars better and that they're superior to glitter, right?
Yeah.
And then later when they're torturing Campbell, he brings her glitter to use. I love that.
That's part of my favorite moment too. But it's not really that he brought that stuff for her. It's how he reacts when he sees her reaction to
Yeah.
it. So she gets so happy and excited when she opens up that toolbox that he brought and sees her glitter and stuff. And then it says that he tries not to, but he blushes.
I know.
Because she's so happy. That is
so
the sweetest little detail. I love that so much. Like that he tries to not blush, but he just can't help it. And he has like a little smile on his face. Like, yes, I did this. You're welcome. I really enjoyed that a lot. I love him so much. What? Let's bring it down.
Let's do it.
What about our least favorite moment?
Mine's actually in the same scene as my favorite moment.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So when they're pulling up, she says, is this some kind of place where you're going to leave me in an attempt to cure my, what did you call it, psycho glitter streak? I hate that Lark thinks that Lachlan's trying to fix her in that way or
yeah.
put her away so he doesn't have to like put up with her.
Yeah.
And it like kind of broke my heart in that moment because he's working really hard to build her trust. And she's like, oh my God, are you like locking me away somewhere?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like literally panics.
Or
for a
you
minute.
think I'm crazy? You think I'm crazy,
Right,
and
right.
you have to fix me. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Mine's
rough.
similar to that in that Lark not believing in herself or thinking things like lower of herself. I thought it was really sad when Lark's reminiscing about her Aunt Ethel's wedding. And while she's at the wedding, she says she thinks to herself that she won't find love like her aunt did. And then it's even sadder that she doesn't think she deserves it.
Oh yeah.
And that just broke my heart. And then also when Campbell is still denying that anything went on, he still doesn't think he did anything wrong.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's disgusting to me
Yep.
that he's still denying it.
Yeah. And I think, well, that's part of my least favorite moment too. That kind of whole part of the plot of this section. It's also kind of a biggest revelation. So when Lachlan shows, this is the same moment, I think, when he shows the headmaster from Lark and Sloane's boarding school all the emails that he's uncovered and is like, this teacher told you something was wrong. This teacher told you something was wrong. So knowing that multiple teachers were telling the headmaster, their boss, that something was going on, something was wrong, he needed to look into it. And so just that's the biggest revelation, right? Like this horrible thing that has affected Lark and Sloane and however many other girls
Could have
from
been
that
prevented.
school, right? Yeah, that people saw it, people knew that it was happening, they knew that it was going on, and he just ignored it.
Right.
But the other teachers didn't.
Yeah.
Right? Like they technically did what they were supposed to do and reported it, and he
Yeah.
just decided like,
Nah.
yeah, I'm just gonna
Hate
not
to
do
ruin
that.
a guy's life.
Right, like it served his purposes better
Right.
to just ignore it, right? So that's just so real in true crime, and I talked about this on Tuesday's episode, right? Like over and over again in different true crime stories, you see police or authority figures just ignoring what they're told and not doing their jobs the way that they need to do their jobs, and how that enables so many criminals to continue to victimize people when if that person in authority had done their job correctly, they would have stopped so many people from being raped or murdered or whatever it is, right? But it also led me to my deep dive.
Ooh.
So this whole, I guess, plot, I don't want to say plot device because that's not really it, but the scene with Lachlan setting up that revenge kill for Lark, especially with the kind of revenge it is, the kind of motivation that Lark has to avenge the abuse that she endured as a young girl, it made me think of this real life case of a revenge killing that is kind of out of the ordinary. So hold on to your butts.
Holding.
I'm excited about this because this story is nuts and a half. So first, I have to tell you about what happened, what the motivation is for this revenge killing. So this is 1983. 1983, an 11-year-old boy was taking karate lessons from a 25-year-old man. And spoiler alert, this karate teacher is the villain in our story.
Is it Gary Plauche?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
So
Heard
good.
this story?
I'm intoxicated and I caught on really
Look at you.
I haven't heard this story.
So that he is not the villain though. He's the dad of this little boy.
Oh, okay.
So this poor kid was being, this 11-year-old child was being sexually abused by this karate instructor for over a year. And the instructor ends up actually kidnapping this kid on Valentine's Day in 1984. So when their child goes missing with this karate instructor, at that point, the parents had no idea, no suspicion, I don't think, that anything untoward was going on with this karate teacher at all.
Like
they had
didn't
no
suspect
idea
that he was the one
right.
that did it.
They had no idea. So when their kid goes missing, I don't know how much time it took for them to like figure out it was the karate instructor. I don't know if it was like he was at a lesson and disappeared from the lesson. Like, I don't know exactly what those details were, but at some point they figure out that it was the karate instructor that took him. And this happened in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And ultimately they found the child and the karate instructor all the way in Anaheim, California.
The child was still
Damn.
alive?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
good.
Yeah. So this is the 80s, right? So going that far away in the 80s, like how are
Yeah.
you going to track them, right? Like
Right.
that just wasn't a thing. So basically the police had nothing to go on. It's like, your kid is missing. We don't know. We have no idea. We don't know where to start. We don't know where to look, what direction to go in. Like, they had no idea. So the only reason they ended up being able to find this kid is because the child convinced the karate instructor to let him call his mom. So the parents were divorced. And so he made a collect phone call. And of course, the police were monitoring,
Right.
phone calls and stuff like that. So they were able to track the call to California and found the instructor and the kid at this hotel. But it was 2 weeks after this kid had been kidnapped, right? So he was being, assaulted and all those horrible things that were happening to him that had already been happening to him for over a year prior to this, right? So the kidnapping happened on Valentine's Day. This child was brought back to his parents on March the 1st. February 29th, it was a leap year. February 29th, the karate instructor was arrested and they took the boy back to Louisiana. So the karate instructor was still in California where he was arrested. The child goes back to his parents. So it was after the child was brought back and, interviewed by police and everything that the parents found out, okay, here's what happened, here's what's been happening, and all this information came out. So Gary is the dad of this child. So the parents at this point had no idea what had been going on. And when they found out 2 weeks after their son was kidnapped that he had been abused and assaulted multiple times by this person that they trusted, the dad basically lost his shit. Yeah. So he later says basically, like, I was shocked, enraged, devastated, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to deal with all this information.
Totally
right?
understandable.
And also just the trauma of having your child kidnapped in and of itself. Like, by itself, that's
I'm
enough.
sitting here literally thinking, like, I cannot imagine for 2 weeks how
gosh.
his parents
Making my
felt.
stomach
I mean,
hurt.
you would think you would never see your kid again,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that by itself is just horrific.
And then also it's almost always someone that you trust, unfortunately,
Yep.
but being a parent and being like,
Yep.
I thought that they were safe.
I trusted them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and then you feel guilty that you put your kid in that situation and all of that stuff. Right?
Right.
So he felt very helpless. The dad, Gary, did. And he just didn't know what to do, which I think every parent could relate to why you would feel all those feelings. Right. So while this father, Gary, is finding all this stuff out and trying to figure out what to do about it. The karate instructor was still in California and wasn't back in Louisiana until a couple of weeks later, mid-March, for the start of his trial on March 16th, which was just over a month after the kidnapping had happened.
This was back when trials they started right away instead of like 2 years later.
Right. Yeah. The 80s. What a time. So Gary found out from a TV news producer that the news crew was going to be at the airport that night at 9:30 to film the arrival of this person from California, and they were going to film him walking, to be transported to the jail or whatever.
Right.
So Gary said, it is on. It's basically what happens, right? So he finds out where they're going to be, what time they're going to be there, and they just so happened to have the cameras for the news crew set up. Folks that are younger are not going to know what I'm talking about, but it was a whole big long line of something called a payphone. Which we don't have anymore.
No, we do not.
And plus also in a post 9/11 world, you're not allowed to just go wander through the airport like you were in 1984.
Right.
So Gary goes to the airport, finds the news crew, sees that all these payphones are there, and he goes and calls his best friend and is on the phone with his best friend while he's waiting for this karate instructor to land, get off the plane and all this stuff. So he has a baseball cap on, sunglasses to disguise himself, and just waits. And when the karate instructor was being walked through and past the cameras, Gary walks up to him and shoots him in the head while the cameras were streaming live.
Oh dear God.
Yeah. So it wasn't just on camera. It was live TV.
Wow.
So
this was probably before they knew how to delay.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
I don't think they knew how to do that at all. So he actually didn't die until the next day. He went into a coma immediately and died from the gunshot wound to the head from point blank range the next day.
I can't believe he survived for a day.
I mean, isn't that amazing? Yeah. So Gary was arrested and originally was charged with second-degree murder, which second-degree, first-degree, all that stuff has to do with the premeditation and the intent and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't first degree.
Well,
yeah.
So he was originally charged with second-degree murder and made a plea deal. He pled no contest to manslaughter, which is not typically the charge
Isn't that
when you
usually
walk up to
an
somebody.
accident? Like manslaughter is like an accident.
It sure is. But
I accidentally pulled my gun on
well,
this guy.
so what they ended up doing, he had a really good defense attorney. Yeah. So what they ended up doing is they had a psychiatrist. His legal team had this psychiatrist come and evaluate him. And this psychiatrist testified that Gary essentially had a brief psychotic break.
Probably.
Which I bet he did, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
The stress of finding out about the abuse of his son the abuse his son had been going through drove him into a temporary psychotic state where he did not know right from wrong, and he killed his son's abuser during that psychotic break. So the psychiatrist testified that at the time of the murder, he did not know right from wrong, which maybe not.
We've talked a lot through this book and Butcher and Blackbird about how people get let off on a technicality or they, get extradited and escape or something. I can imagine as a parent being if I don't do anything, he's going to do it to someone else.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Right.
And he had my child for 2 weeks by himself.
Yep.
Then he abused him for a year. I'm not saying I would not have the same type of psychotic break.
Yeah.
I mean, because you feel so helpless and what are you going to do to solve this problem? Because at this point, there's no guarantee this guy's going to jail.
1,000%.
Yeah.
He had to stop it.
1,000%.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
As a mom, I get it.
I mean,
I totally get it.
It's very, on a greater scale, but thinking about when I'm anxious about something and it gets pin up and pin up and pin up.
Yeah.
And then I have to go scream or punch.
There's an
something
explosion of emotion somehow. Yeah.
And, with this, it's on such, it's times 2,000, right? And I'm going to say I probably would have done the same thing.
Well, so let me tell you a little bit more about what ended up happening. So because of the temporary psychotic break argument, basically the psychiatrist and the legal team said, this action was very situation specific, right? Mm-hmm. And so they said, there's not really any point to put him in jail because jail is supposed to be rehabilitating and protecting the public from a dangerous criminal,
Right.
but he isn't dangerous because this was a reaction to a very specific situation that probably isn't going to happen again, right? So there's no point to put him in jail because there's basically no chance of him being violent with anybody else in the future. That was the argument. And the judge was like, okay. Yeah, basically, yeah. So he got 0 jail time.
Wow.
For murder.
Murdering somebody.
Murder.
He wasn't even put like in an institution or anything.
Nope.
Wow.
Nope, he sure wasn't.
It was temporary.
He got a 7-year suspended sentence, which means that, 7-year suspended sentence and 5 years probation. So suspended sentence means you aren't going to go to jail right now, but if you get in trouble while you're on probation, you are going to go to jail for 7 years.
Gotcha.
So he had a suspended sentence that he never ended up having to serve. He had 5 years probation that he was just fine, and 300 hours of community service. And that was it. So again, just going to remind everybody.
You gotta wonder if the judge was like, dude, I have a son. Fuck that.
I know.
I really,
right?
honestly, I really think that's what happened. So he did shoot a man in the head on live
blank.
TV. That is a thing that he did. That's not typically a thing that we all applaud, but
Right.
there are some extenuating circumstances in this situation.
Well, and
So-
you and I both have a son right around that age.
age, 100%. So Gary was interviewed in 2013, which ended up being a year before he died, and he said he had no regrets and would do it again, which I wrote, honestly, legendary.
It also doesn't sound very much like a psychotic break, but
1,000%. Yeah,
But I
he
mean,
didn't. He didn't have a psychotic break. He did
also
what he
does
needed to do.
A guy defending his son deserve
Yep.
to be in with like hard criminals.
Exactly.
That's why I asked if he
Exactly.
went into like an institutional home at all. But
No, I don't think he did.
it's not okay to murder people ever, but
No.
in this instance, that
We all
child,
get it.
that
Yeah.
child's innocence in life was stolen forever.
Yes.
Well, so I wanted to end by talking a little bit about the son, which I've left him anonymous on purpose. He was a child when this happened. He's obviously not a child at this point, but his son went on to write a book about his experiences, and he became a sexual assault awareness advocate. Good
for him.
And as his career, he actually became a sexual assault counselor. And this past year was the 40th anniversary of all of this happening, and so he did some kind of interview with I didn't write down who it was with, but he did an interview where he said his father was the greatest dad of all time. And the title of this article I wrote down because I just was like, what a headline. The title of this article was "My Life is Great 40 Years After My Father Killed My Rapist on Live TV."
Oh dear God.
Oh wow, that headline. But yeah, he said he used to have a lot of issues immediately after this with his father because
Sure.
he had been groomed by this man
Yeah.
that was abusing him, and he saw him as a friend and was mad at his dad for taking his friend away
Oh my
from
God,
him.
can you imagine?
Right? But obviously now as an adult and after I'm sure a lot of therapy, he said his dad was the greatest dad of all time. And so Gary died of a stroke in 2014, but he'll live on forever as a hero.
But his son is still alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll live on forever as a hero to his little boy. So I love that story. It is like the weirdest, craziest.
It reminds me of A Time to Kill. Did you ever see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, his
Oh my gosh,
daughter
that movie
gets
is so
raped
good.
and he kills the aggressor. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
But
think
he's a black man in the South, so it's
Oh my gosh, that movie is so
unfortunately
good.
quite different.
yeah,
Yeah.
that movie is so good. But yeah, so that was a lot.
That was a lot.
Yeah,
But
a lot to
The
unpack.
only, don't go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to bring it back a little bit to this revelation in the actual book. I hated that for Lark and Sloane, knowing that if this one guy had done his job, that could have spared that abuse for them. And I
Right.
wonder if they know that. I wonder if they I know that they know nobody did anything, nobody helped me, but I wonder if they know that there actually were teachers that saw what was happening.
Right.
She knows now.
Some people saw and tried to help. And
Right.
I wonder if Sloane knows that.
Yeah.
And if that matters. You know what I mean?
At this point, probably not.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to add to your biggest revelation, because mine was the same, is a part that I loved was that the teacher actually helped cover up whenever Sloane murders the headmaster helps cover up when Sloane murders the teacher, right?
Yeah.
And he brings that up to Lachlan. He's like, if you kill me, this is going straight to the FBI. I've got all the evidence. I've got the emails that they killed him. I've got the Kavachi family that, told me to cover it up. And Lachlan's like, fuck, you already found all the evidence and burned it.
Yeah, I got all that.
I loved it.
Yeah.
Because the teacher had like one card to play, or the headmaster. I'm sorry. The headmaster had one card to play. And he's like, I'll fucking tell everybody. And Lachlan's like, the hell you will.
Yeah.
And I loved that so
liked that
much.
a lot
Like
too,
Lachlan had all the bases covered. I mean, he does this for a fucking living.
Right.
So yeah. So mine was the same, but I wanted to add that too. Because it just, again, the big dick energy with Lachlan in this part.
It
Woo,
was strong.
taking care of his woman.
It was strong in this section.
But on the flip side, he's also so sweet and like trying to get to know her, because that was my biggest revelation, which we've already talked about, was that he actually watched Constantine 12 times because he wanted to know Lark better.
Right. It's her favorite
And
movie.
so he's got this BDE, but like also BDE with being so like loving and
Sweet.
yes.
Yeah.
Who has bigger BDE, Lachlan or Rowan?
For me, it's Lachlan.
I like Rowan's character more, but I think Lachlan has more
Yeah,
BDE.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Rowan has more swagger.
Rowan would be pissed if he heard us saying this.
You fucking bitches.
No, I put that as like a part 2 of my biggest revelation too. Just like all the work that Lachlan is doing to get to know who Sloane really is, because he recognizes that she wears a mask, right? Like she's what did I say,
said
Sloane?
Sloane.
Sorry.
Well, we were
That
just talking about
he
Rowan,
recognizes that Lark is like putting a show on for everybody, but he wants to figure out who she actually is, and just. I loved that. So Deb, you already said your spicy scene. Remind me again what.
It was just
said
the
it was-
whole big dick energy of him,
Oh,
like
the general vibe.
not groveling, but saying like, "I haven't earned your forgiveness. Don't give it to me yet." Like that just really made me swoon for him. He understands how a woman's mind works. Like she's not gonna just be like, "Thanks for bringing me to this clinic and thanks for
We're good now."
right."
Yeah.
Like she's like, "Nope, you got to work for it." I love it.
I mean, mine was just the whole scene that we just talked about where he kidnaps the tormentor and lets her kill him for closure. It really gave me Castile Poppy vibes.
Oh yeah.
right.
That's
and
good.
so I
Good parallel, Mindy.
Season 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to me was very
Yeah.
it's sexy to me when a guy's like, I'm gonna help you.
In fiction.
Yeah. Yes.
Darren is actually a
Just
contract
to clarify.
No, like it's
Yeah.
I can see that. Well, and it is part of the BDE and a turn on. And
It's like that touch her and die trope.
Yes,
Yeah, like you
yes.
did this to her and I'm going to help her get revenge.
Can you imagine how shook we would be if we found out any of the 3 of our husbands was like a cleaner? I know. It's like they're all 3 cinnamon rolls. Like they're so sweet. I cannot, like Brian being like, "Sorry you caught me. I had to go clean up a dead body." Like
Robbie would be like with a broom? Like, what do you mean clean?
I got this shop vac.
I've got Clorox wipes. Like, what?
Hand me that
Shout
baby
out
wipe.
to
There's some blood.
Robbie. So for my favorite spicy scene, I said, this is where we're going to talk about Lachlan's boners.
Ooh, can't wait.
As promised. I loved basically what I called intrusive thoughts that Lachlan keeps having about Lark. And he's in these like sweet moments or serious moments or whatever. And he'll just be like, I wonder what her pussy looks like. And it's like,
That red lipstick would look good on my dick.
yes, like he just keeps having these random, like very sexual thoughts that, I mean, he's like super drawn to her, right? But I love, like, he thinks about what she's wearing and what she looks like in what she's wearing, because now he's gone through her underwear drawer looking for all those trophies, right? Like he knows what her lingerie looks like. He packed the underwear for the sleep study place or whatever. Yes. And just the idea of somebody being so attracted to you that they think about you like that all the time. And then he said he jerks it to it. He jerks it to her like 3 times a day. And he just keeps like popping a boner, like thinking about Lark. And I love that. I love that. And like BDE, right? Like you are so hot. I think about you all the time. Like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I love that.
Well, while we're talking about Lachlan, he's actually my chapter MVP.
Me too.
mine too.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons that you just said. So he takes Lark to the sleep clinic. He catches the headmaster that was letting the teacher hurt Lark and Sloane. He brings Lark glitter when she's unaliving said headmaster. and he watches Constantine 12 times. Not even that, but he gets the screenplay and reads it to her to help her fall asleep, which I loved.
Yeah.
So I did want to do a deep dive here because if you listen to the Tuesday episode this week, we talked about the movie Constantine and why Lark may be so obsessed with it. And the movie is set in like deep Christian lore. And one item that stuck out to me was the Spear of Destiny. I hadn't really heard of that before, and it's a big proponent of that book. And so it didn't fit in anywhere else, so I'm doing it here because I wanted to talk about it. So the Spear of Destiny is a holy relic that's believed to have been the spear that caused the death of Jesus Christ. The man who used it is said to have had blood splash on his face, which healed his eyesight and therefore converted him to Christianity. Oh. The spear is considered one of the most precious Christian relics along with the Holy Grail and the Shroud of Turin. A prophecy was attached to the javelin which reads, "Whoever possesses the spear and understands the power it serves holds in his hands the destiny of the world for good or evil." And so it no longer was merely a like holy lance. That's when it became the Spear of Destiny, when that prophecy was attached to it.
Can I ask a probably stupid question?
Yeah.
So that prophecy is like for real in real life or in the world of the movie Constantine?
For real in real life.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything I'm telling you is like real life stuff
Okay.
right now. So many believe that being in possession of the Spear of Destiny would lead to victory in war, and that losing it could cause misfortune. And there's tons of examples of this actually. So supposedly it caused Attila the Hun to retreat. Okay. The original owner who speared Jesus was said to have also been crucified once he lost it. Charlemagne carried it through 47 battles, but died the same day that he dropped it.
Ooh.
A Holy Roman Emperor also died just minutes after he dropped it into a river.
Uh-oh.
It's also said that Hitler was obsessed with the object because he felt like touching it gave him supernatural powers.
Oh, wow.
Some say that he planned on using it as a main feature of a future coronation ceremony, along with the crown jewels that he stole from Vienna. And this was in an attempt to establish his own version of like the Holy Roman Empire. But get this shit. Oddly enough, just hours after Allied troops came into the possession and took it from him, Hitler killed himself. So you have all of these like people within wars that had it, and within the same day that they lost it, died.
Where is it now?
It is in a museum. I think it's in. I think it's in Russia.
Can we keep it out of America, please.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my
there
gosh.
are two. There's like there's two main relics. One of them they don't know which one's real. And then there's like pieces of it that they think are also part of it. So those are kind of scattered throughout the world. But right now it's housed in a museum where like no one's allowed to touch it or anything. But Hitler was the last person to use it for like nefarious reasons.
Wow.
But yeah, it was known as like a battle relic for a long time.
I did not know that was like a real thing.
I didn't either.
I didn't
thought
either.
It was just the movie.
And so I was so interested in it because it is such a big part of the plot point in that.
Yeah.
But in the same way, I was confused on that plot point.
Yeah.
So that's what made me go and start looking it up. And so like
was
there's
very
there's
confused.
tons more like lore about this spear, but it's such interesting like. Oh, that was my phone saying it's at 10%. Do you mind plugging it in, Whit?
Yeah. I better take this off first.
Yelled at us.
I mean, God forbid our listeners not be able to see our faces.
Well, they just saw a lot of my face on the camera there.
Probably a nice shot of your boobies too.
No, they're all covered up.
Well, I mean, they are, but they probably got all close to the camera.
Oh.
So sorry, my phone interrupted us. Did you have a question?
Oh, no, it wasn't a question. I was just, you were talking about being kind of confused about that plot point. It took me, I want to say the whole movie to figure out exactly what it was.
Right. I still
Yeah.
didn't really understand in the end what it had to do with anything besides
Yeah.
it like gave people powers. And maybe that's what was the point.
It was what made the dude that found it put everything into motion, right?
I think that Mammon, the Lucifer's son,
Yeah.
was somehow like using the spear
To like come back to life,
as a
right?
conduit or
Okay.
something,
Okay.
and that I understood that Mammon, is that how you say it?
Something like that, yeah.
Was like possessing that guy that had the spear.
That's what I thought.
That's
too.
what I thought too.
And I think the spear was like
but because
the
it was
ability to
supposed
do
to be a
that?
conduit, that's what made me look it up. I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's got to have, like, where did they just come up with
Yeah,
Spear of
that
Destiny?
is
Right.
So apparently it's a real thing.
huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Go check it out. There in the
kind
show
of
notes. Yeah, in the show notes, there's a video from the Smithsonian about like Hitler's role with the spear, and then a bunch of articles where I got this information from. If anyone wants to look at it more,
Fascinating.
It's kind of interesting because you don't, especially in the Christian faith, you don't have a lot of items that would have like a supernatural power
Right,
to them.
sure.
So that's why I find it so interesting.
well, thank you. You taught me a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm
Very
happy to help.
fascinating.
Yep. Well, Mindy and I also chose Lachlan for our
Yes.
MVPs. Mindy, what were your reasons?
I mean, really, we've said it all. I love that he finally apologizes to Lark. I don't know what took him so long. But then that he takes her to the sleep retreat because he really cares about her and he cares about winning her trust. And that he's really vulnerable in these chapters.
Yeah.
And you get the sense that he'll never give up on her.
He like needs a hug.
I
He really
know.
does.
He really does.
I'll give him one.
I'll hug his dick.
Do you mind? Do you mind? Do you mind if his boner's sticking into your side?
Not at all. Not even a little bit. No.
Do you remember in high school when you're like, "Oh my god, he had a boner," and now you're like, "Andy had a boner."
No, I would have been horrified by that in high school.
You never had a dude rub his boner up on you in high school?
I guess not.
Oh,
I was
felt
like-
like it was always like,
I was making out in like the Sunday school room.
but he wasn't like up against you.
I guess not. Maybe we left room for the Holy Spirit. I don't know.
Just come in between my vagina and his boner.
It doesn't count if we leave room for the Holy Spirit. No, I said all those same things about Lachlan, but one detail that I really, really loved is that the whole thing with the headmaster is because Lark searched that name when they were at Leander's
that's
house.
right.
And
That's
he
right.
he paid attention.
Yeah.
He
Oh,
paid
I forgot
attention
about
and
that.
he remembered and he looked it up himself later and figured out like why
Yeah.
she would have looked him up.
You know what's
I love
funny
that.
is when I was reading these chapters, because we've all already read this book, I had completely fucking forgot about all of this. That
Oh,
she
yeah.
had gotten
Oh, I had
her
to.
revenge.
Yeah, me too. There are many things, both in Butcher and Blackbird and in this
I think
book
when
that
you're
I don't
reading it
remember.
the first time, you're like, when are they going to fuck?
That's kind of accurate. Yeah. Who did you guys pick for your favorite secondary character?
The same as last week. I picked Ethel.
Ethel. Yeah.
I put Ethel and her muffins. Because who the hell knocks out a psychotic dude with laced muffins? That is a ballsy move.
It's amazing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that why you liked her too?
I mean, that was part of it, but I just love that she just says whatever she wants. Like when she says to Lark, yes, fuck him. I need to live vicariously through someone, and Ava's love life is boring. I'm half convinced that husband of hers is a robot.
Yeah. I
And
like
then
that too.
when she's texting with Lachlan, and Lark's like, "Why do you have his number?" And she's talking to him, and she said, I think she says it to Lachlan. She says it to her because she says, "I get all the boys, Missy."
Yeah, I liked that a lot. Yeah. I actually picked Connor, Lachlan's like partner in crime.
Oh, yeah.
Literally his partner in crime. For all the same reasons as we picked Lachlan, right? Because he helped Lachlan set that whole thing up, which
does.
I really appreciated. But he also sees that Lachlan actually like has feelings for Lark and loves her and congratulates him and says, like, I'm happy for you, man. And I thought that was really
Good
that was
job, buddy.
cute. Yeah. I
And at
really
least
enjoyed
he
that.
has a role. You're like, okay, Connor. Instead of you're like, why the fuck is Anna here?
For real. I know more about Connor and I know more about Claire than I think we'll ever know about Anna at this point.
I don't know.
But
Book 3's coming.
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh my God, how
maybe
about that
she'll
cover,
be,
by the way?
Oh, that is so pretty. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. What has been your favorite quote in these chapters? We've shared a couple, but
I've like 2 more, but you guys go.
mine are both sweet. One from Lark and one from Lachlan. So the one from Lark that I really liked, she says, I grin at Lachlan, and though it's soft and almost shy, he smiles back. And I'm like, oh, he's so cute.
You like each other. You
he's-
like your husband.
I know, right? So cute. And then Lachlan is talking about like how he has felt so like empty and lonely for a really long time. And then he says, since Lark came into my life, I have felt excited every day. And that's so nice. Like, that you like somebody that much that they bring excitement to your life? Like,
Well, I mean,
you're happy
she
to wake
would
up
anyway. I mean, Christ.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. What does he call her? A disaster? Feckin' disaster?
Feckin' disaster.
Yeah. What about you guys? What quotes did you write down?
Mine are both from Lark, and they're not, I guess, really either super sweet. But she's talking. I think she's talking to Sloan. I need to start writing down like what the situation
The
is.
context?
Yeah. But she says, Lachlan's being extra broody and weirdly protective, and he's hot, and I have eyes. I can appreciate hot. It doesn't mean I want to fuck my husband.
Yeah. I liked that a lot too. Yeah.
And then after she's done like getting her revenge on Campbell, she says, "Enjoy hell, Mr. Campbell. Tell the devil that the Canes send their regards."
I love
like
that.
There's so
too.
much wrapped up in that, like that she says the Canes.
Well,
like,
and whenever he walks in and he says like Lark Montague, and she goes Lark Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like owning the marriage, which I really
Absolutely.
love. Yeah. Mine were both from Lark. The first one was she says to Ethel, she goes, "Love you, Hellraiser," and then Ethel says, "Shh, don't give the devil any ideas." And then Lark actually has a Zoolander reference when she and Lachlan go in to look on the computer. She goes, "You mean the files are in the computer?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just love you. You love Constantine and Zoolander.
And Lachlan's
Yeah.
like, huh?
What? I don't watch that
I
dumb
love how
shit.
he's completely like clueless.
He has no
when it
idea
comes
what
to
she's
that,
talking about.
Yeah.
Are there any questions that you guys have? My only one was the one about like, does Sloan and Lark, do they know that teachers, like the grown-ups in the room saw? They weren't
Right.
like just ignored or overlooked. People saw what was
Right.
going on. Did you guys have any questions that you want answered?
I want to know why or what Lachlan's listening to while he's crafting that trophy, and why is it definitely a romance book? Mm-hmm. And what is he making with all that gold wire? Like,
Yeah.
I'm very curious.
I bet
See
he's
what
listening to
comes
Pucking Around.
of that. Absolutely.
It's definitely a hockey
Yeah.
romance.
Yeah, for sure.
sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Or like a cowboy romance. He's listening to Done and Dusted or whatever.
Did you have any questions you want answered, Deb?
Nope.
Oh, well, all
I
right.
know. What,
All
are you just so
then.
surprised?
What are you guys looking forward to?
Sexy times. Sexy times.
Me too, but also that like more of them getting to know each other and actually acting on their
Biblically.
feelings.
That's what
Biblically, absolutely.
That's what I said too. Like
Yeah.
just them continuing to build an actual relationship
Yeah.
and like fall for each other more and like be okay with the fact that they are falling for each
Yeah.
other. Yep. I wrote in my notes. I forgot I wrote this down until I'm seeing it just now. I would have laid down for him after the sleep spa. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah.
Get it.
She's like,
Get it,
am I
girl."
asleep or am I not?
Come into my dreams, big boy.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna use that line on Robbie.
And he'll be like, you mean like in Twilight?
Today he said something about the weather, and I said, "How you liking the rain, girl?"
Did he get
I
it?
had no idea. He was like,
Loca.
"What?" Yeah. It's like it's from Twilight. It's fine. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about?
No, it was a
About the
fun part of
section?
the book.
It
It really was. Yeah, it kind of makes me afraid because I'm like, what's
What's
gonna
coming
happen?
next?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's
They're
gonna happen
getting
next?
along too early in the book.
I know, right? Well, listeners, next time we're going to be talking about the same Leather and Lark chapters 16 through 19.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.